Hi guys, today is going to be a quick recap of yarn shops in Prague. This is part of a wider series that I'm kicking off this year where I'm going to record and kind of give a little overview of yarn shops that I visit, both here in the UK where I'm from and internationally, with the aim that really if you are travelling somewhere and you're a knitter or a crocheter and you want to figure out whether or not you can factor in a kind of yarn shop stop into your trip and whether or not, to be honest, that's going to be the vibe that you want, it's going to be worth it, then hopefully these videos will kind of help you make that assessment, and if not, maybe you can vicariously travel around different knitting shops with me here. So when I recently visited Prague, I visited 2 out of the 3 yarn shops. The third has got a Czech name and I couldn't find a really good website for them, and they were out in the 5th district of Prague. Prague is broken up into districts a bit like the arrondissement in Paris. So we were not really based out in the 5th and it was quite a way out of our way. Now in some ways I wish I'd gone, because then I'd be able to tell you whether or not it was worth the trip out there. I've heard very good things from knitters in the 2 shops that I did visit, but alas, I didn't get to go out and see that. So the 2 yarn shops I did go and visit were Yarn Queen and Woolpoint. Yarn Queen is based in the east of the city, just east of the Old Town, and it took us about 20 to 30 minutes to get there on foot from the Old Town centre. Now you could also get a metro, or there are buses, or you could get a taxi, but we found that walking was quite a nice way to see a little bit more of that side of the city. And you go out there via the National Museum, and there's a big children's museum as well. So if you're going with family, that could be a really good stop off en route. The area around Yarn Queen also has lots of nice supermarkets, traditional restaurants, an amazing coffee shop, which if I can find it, I will link below. So lots to do in that area to make a bit of a morning of it. The Yarn Queen team were amazing, very, very warm and welcoming when I entered the shop. It was quite busy whilst I was there, so I didn't get as much footage as I maybe would have wanted to, but I was just very conscious that people are there trying to just enjoy yarn shopping, and having a camera on, even if it's not pointed at them, might just make people feel a bit uncomfortable. I didn't want to ruin anyone else's knitting experience, so I kept filming to a minimum, but hopefully there's enough to give you a sense of the shop. I will list below, and it is on their website, a number of the brands of yarn that they stock. But I would say they've got a really good balance between breadth and depth. So whilst they've got quite a few different brands of yarn, they've also got multiple bases and colours in each, which I think is really important. And for me, what really attracted me in going to the shop was they had really good stock of multiple different Filcolana bases with really good array of colours. And I knew I wanted to pick up a load of Filcolana yarn. I can access it here in the UK, but it's quite hard to pick up. There are only certain shops that sell it, and when they do, the delivery cost is quite high. So I wanted to go and pick it up in person where I could kind of compare colourways and hold it against different bases from other yarn brands. The one thing I would say about the shop, and I don't know if it's kind of the time of year that I visited or even the day, but I didn't really feel like there was a place for me to kind of sit and think through yarn decisions. But that being said, it kind of does encourage you to kind of keep momentum with your yarn shopping, and as I said, the staff in the shop were so friendly and so helpful and so patient with me whilst I pulled out different balls, contrasted them, and then put several of them back. So they were really, really helpful, and even went into the stock room to help me get hold of a colour that I particularly wanted. So what did I pick up at the shop? I won't go into huge detail in terms of what I'm going to knit with it, but just in raw form, what I picked up is a little pile here. I got multiple balls of each of these, but in summary, I got 3 different Filcolana bases. I got Filcolana Saga in the colour 950. I got Filcolana Arwetta in the colour 971, which is kind of like an oatmeal. And I picked up Filcolana Panilla, which is one of my favourite yarns, in the colour 977, which is kind of colloquially known as marzipan. Picked up 2 of these, 3 of these, and 4 of these, along with 4 balls of Fyberspates Cumulus in the colourway Natural. And this was really important to be able to kind of hold these 2 together and see how they'd fare. If you want to know what I'm knitting with all of these, do check out my next podcast episode, which will be launching on Friday the 19th of January. So that is Yarn Queen, and hopefully I've been slotting in some footage as I was talking. As I said, not quite as much as I would have hoped to have got, but really, really pleased I went out to the shop. The next shop I went to was Woolpoint. Woolpoint is over on the opposite side of the river. It's West Prague, but still very central. And we had a lovely walk there via the kind of old castle. It also happens to be very close to the Strachov Monastery and Brewery, which is not only a really historically significant site in Prague, but also has an amazing brewery with great beer, if you're with any beer lovers when you're there, and has a really good restaurant. So my other half opted to come with me to the shop, but equally it's literally a 5-minute walk down the road, so I could have left him there to enjoy some beer. The Woolpoint shop also has a great website. The owners, I hope I'm pronouncing their names correctly, Susanna and Susanna. They've got exactly the same name, which I just think is awesome. And their mission was to set up a European/UK American style yarn shop, which was more like a creative hub for knitters and makers. And they really have succeeded in doing this. The shop is beautiful. It feels slightly more curated than Yarn Queen, in the sense that Yarn Queen's got a huge amount of stock. Woolpoint's got slightly less stock, but what they do have is really beautiful. They've got their own hand-dyed yarn, which I should have said Yarn Queen do too. I got to have a lovely chat with their shop assistant, who was very helpful, very lovely, and we had a chat about what we're both knitting. And my other half made use of a sofa they've got there, which allows you to kind of sit, pause, and decide on what it is that you're wanting to purchase. So from Woolpoint, I hope I've been kind of, again, showing some video. I'll keep below in the description box all the different brands that they stock, and particularly those that were kind of important to me, as well as linking to their website. But I think the main thing that attracted me to Yarn Queen was I felt they had some of the slightly more brighter colourways of certain yarns, and they also had CaMaRose Midnight Soul, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was something I really wanted to get my hands on and kind of see and feel in person. So without further ado, what did I pick up? I picked up 3 balls and 1 set of needles. Now the needles are on a project, so I can't show you, but they're a little pair of 3mm, 25cm cord Knit Pro needles, which I was using for a marathon of twisted rib on a jumper, so that was really handy. The other things I picked up was a skein of Malabrigo Ultimate Sock. The colour's coming out a little bit bright on camera. It's slightly more muted, slightly more autumnal in person, kind of sunsetty autumnal vibes. It's gorgeous. And then the other thing, as said, I picked up a ball of Mint Soul. Again, this is coming up very bright on camera. It's slightly more cherry in person. I think it's really important to be able to kind of feel these. This is a 54% baby alpaca, 36% tencel and 10% merino. I've never felt this combination before. It's not quite as soft as a mohair or a baby Saurian silk, but it's kind of got a more durable feel to it. So that was really important for me to be able to feel that, and to be able to hold it next to a colour that is not normally in my wheelhouse. This is a bright orange, colour number 252 from Filcolana. This is another ball of Alweta, but I want to hold these two together. So it's, again, as I say, really important to hold them in person to see if they will achieve the effect that I'd like. So there's my very brief overview of the 2 yarn shops I visited in Prague. Both were very, very easy to access on foot, but as I've mentioned, trams and metro are also available. The taxi system in Prague is also really good if that's your preferred method. Both are very close to kind of touristy hotspots and kind of things that you want to do, yet they're also kind of tucked away so they kind of feel peaceful. There's not crowds of people walking past the doors, kind of making it feel busy and rushed. So both have really, really nice vibes, both have very kind of individual styles, and I think that's really important in servicing the knitting community in Prague. But if you're visiting Prague, I could highly recommend both. I think if you've only got a short time to go, particularly to Yarn Queen, really make sure you've checked out their website beforehand and you know what it is that you want to look for. Because if you have got very specific projects in mind, they've got so much stock that trying to look through all of it very, very quickly could be a bit overwhelming. Alternatively, if you're one of those people that just loves to walk into a shop and just get inspired, go ahead, walk in unprepared, and you'll be blown away by the range of yarns, including if you are a Bien Aimee fan, they've got a really big selection of that there too. So I will see you again on my next podcast episode, or indeed on my next travel yarn shop recap. See you soon.